Welcome to another episode of The Impact of AI and Big Data. This week, we are fortunate to have a woman all the way calling in from Tel Aviv, Israel. Her name is Shiran Somech. And she is here with us this week to talk about her really bringing and highlighting women's voices through the use of AI and data and technology. And then also some of the work that she's doing extracurricular on top of everything else, um, which is a focus on advocating for female entrepreneurship and gender equality. Each episode is sponsored by those who want to support our conversation. And this week we are lucky to have our sponsors, WILDA, Women Leaders in Data and Artificial Intelligence. Welcome, Shiran.
Thank you. Very happy to be here today.
Before we dive into, the heart of the conversation, I was looking at your background on LinkedIn, and I noticed that your professional journey has been really diverse in that you started your career as a lawyer and then moved through marketing and then technology into what you're doing today. Can you elaborate on what part of your professional journey made you pivot from the lawyer? Because I know in wanting to be a lawyer myself at one point, there's a lot of education and a lot of work that goes into that. So yeah, I'm really interested in what helped you make that pivot.
I think the reality. So when I graduated from school, I really enjoyed school, university, the study was very, very interesting, and I flourished. And then I started my work as a lawyer, and it was much far away from the theory, and the practice was much more, I don't know, it's a lot of regulation and a lot of paperwork and many hours. By the way, I don't afraid work hard and work many hours, but I need to work where my passion is, where my heart is, and I couldn't say this about as working as a lawyer. This is my passion is so this is why I think the reality was stronger, and unfortunately I pivot, or not unfortunately.
So law school was much more fun and exciting than the real world.
Definitely.
So early on in your career, you shifted from being a lawyer to moving into marketing and technology.
I think at that point, I realized I want to do something more creative. And this is why I was I built my own digital agency firm and work with around the social media, and I did it with a good friends of mine. We both came from the same school. We know each other very well, and she worked with a children channel, a lot of children TV shows. And this is where we started, actually. We work with a lot of artists, and we build their social media channels, and we create monetization for them. And for me, at that point, was a lot of fun, like switching from very, a big boring area with a lot of paperwork to a world with a lot of creativity and more, fun people. And also it was a great period for me back then.
So today we wanted to focus more on a couple projects that you've been doing recently. Since 2015, you've been volunteering for head of special projects with a program that's sponsored by the Ministry of Welfare and Tel Aviv municipality. And this program specifically helps women really move out of that sex work cycle, but integrating them into high tech and eventually into the workforce. I would like to hear a little bit more about that project.
So I think all my life I was kind of integrate between like day job, and also I do a lot of social activities.
Mm-hmm.
And my main focus was empowering women. So I was volunteer in two different organizations. One is a community and organization that propelling forward female entrepreneur in the high-tech industry, where we support them with a practical tool, knowledge, network, connection, assist them to raise money, and so on. Because Israel is known as a startup nation, but still only 10% of founders are female. So we are a startup nation, but only for one gender, unfortunately. So those women, amazing women, inspirational women, still need those tools. So this is what I did for a few years, and I was a managing partner in Yazamiyot. It's a Hebrew name for female founder, and not international name, but still. And together with this, I also was working with women in a different condition, more women at risk, that trapped in the cycle of prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
And in my vision, after I was exposed to the high-tech industry, I thought that, you know, where they have kind of where they are going out from this trap of the prostitution world and get all the process of rehabilitation. So they still need to find a decent work and to think about to have a more bright future. And it's very, very difficult from their own condition, but I really believe in the high-tech industry, and I believe that, you know, sometimes she's like a lighthouse for many moral issues. So I really thought they can be, from the high-tech industry, can be more patient, and they also always talking about diversity and inclusion. And from the people, the women trapped in the prostitution cycle, or not only women, by the way, it's across all genders, and also we can create this bridge for them, you know, from both places. Also the high-tech, also the women itself, it's very difficult. So this is why they need people to support them along the way. Also for them, it's look like over there, all these privileged people working in the high-tech industry, and I really want to give them tools to be more independent. And I really believe that the high-tech industry can be a very inclusive place for them to work. And luckily we have a success. So this is very, very exciting. We brought people like volunteers that support them and teach them to code. You know, it's not like in a university or military service and other, but still it was enough to filter the women with technical skills. And while we found those women, we give them more tools and give them more support and assist them with specific IT company that we are working and familiar on a personal relationship with, and it works. It's very, very difficult, and it's not a good solution for many women, but those who are, they are part of this IT company, for them it's amazing.
So by providing the support of teaching them development and coding skills, you're able to put them in a position where they can apply for technical jobs.
Yeah.
Which moves them out of their current predicament or current situation into maybe a better paying job, but also within the technology industry.
Definitely. You know, they are starting in the entry position, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still some of them already there for 5 years.
Right. That's fantastic. How many, do you know how many women since you've been working with them in 2015, do you know how many women you've been able to have a visible impact with?
So I support this organization named a SALI program in a different layers or different directions as well. One of them is support those women. And so far, I think we assist, I think like 10 women so far
That's
between
fantastic.
the IT industry. Yes, yes.
Because ultimately, each woman that, even the women that you've worked with who may not have decided to go into this industry, um, I suspect that you've still touched them in a way that has made some sort of impact in them indirectly, that eventually that may lead to them talking to somebody else that says, hey, it wasn't for me, but maybe you should go try this.
I believe this what's happened, and also I think the process is it's not that easy. Even that we have the best and the personal connection in the other side, still like they need to do their own progress along the way. And sometimes we succeed in the first time, but sometimes we need the second time and the third time, and we need to be very patient.
Sharon, I want to take some time and really talk about something that has really gone viral for you. In 2021, you created a campaign, Listen to My Voice. And I wasn't aware of this until you and I had already committed to doing the podcast. But I want to read what is on the website. So, Listen to My Voice is an AI campaign against domestic violence, specifically a social campaign, AI based, speaking up against domestic violence, developed in collaboration with a nonprofit and your government partners, tech creators, and sponsors. Now, what's really interesting here is that you've taken women who have impacted against domestic violence, and through the use of technology, you share the stories of 5 women who were murdered by their intimate partners. You animate and you dub their images and you share their personal stories as if the story was coming from them. I did look at this before we spoke, and it is absolutely amazing. Like until I read this, I wasn't entirely 100% sure that these people were not alive. Um, I want to understand more about how this came to be. Where did it come? Where did the concept come from? How did you bring this from concept to reality? And then also a little bit more about the technical piece of it, taking the voices of individuals who are not currently alive, but using the AI technology to bring that in reality.
Sure. So it was almost 2 years ago. I
Mhm.
think I work in innovation center for smart mobility, totally different domain. And one of the companies I work with was a company named DAD that generates videos from one still image. And while working with DAD, also in Israel, we had I met a domestic violence survivor that shared her story with the whole country. And by telling her story, she creates such an amazing impact. And that got me thinking about all the women that are not with us anymore. And what if we can hear their voice again? And at that point, I think the idea that pumped into my head, and I thought we can bring this woman to life by using AI technology. And we can give them their voice back, and we can let them tell their own stories from their own mouths. And I think at that moment, I wasn't sure, if it's a brilliant idea or totally insane. And so then I called to my friend, the CEO of DAD, and another friend of mine for advertising firm Dibor. And luckily, both of them really loved the idea. And from that day, I had a mission, and I decided to quit my job and put my whole time and effort in this campaign and bring them to life. And that's what I did.
Where, you talk about the stories of 5 women, you know, sharing their stories in their own voices. Are these is the voice really their voice that you got samples from, or is it an educated? Okay.
Okay, so this is very, very good question. So it's not really their voice because it's more complicated to do it.
Right.
I also was exploring this in the beginning, if we can use their real voice. And unfortunately, back then it wasn't so over the shelf because also the Hebrew language, there are some technology, but we cannot do it with the Hebrew language. And also we need more high quality files of their voice, while they're recording their voice. And unfortunately, we didn't have any of those. And so what we did, we use actresses. And the actresses also was what we do in the technology, we keep the facial expression of the actresses and transform them to the still image. And this is how we can create a tailor-made and a very authentic video. So this is what we did. We collaborate with the very famous and very familiar actresses in Israel. And they were, I think, acting those women that murdered. And also we use their voices, the actresses' voices.
Okay.
So we also dubbed those still image. They also dubbed the woman that murdered.
Where did this story come from? How did you come up with I'm going to say the life cycle of the story?
So what I did, so I started to talk to families, to affected families. In the beginning, I reached out to a organization in Israel. They are working those kind of families that lost their loved ones. And they assist me and connect me to those families because after all, like personal relationship, it's the most important thing because this campaign is super sensitive. So they connect me to those amazing families. And by the way, not all the families said yes, and not all family want to be part of this campaign. But it's very difficult for them as well. And I was talking to many families, and finally I got those 5 amazing family, and they were part of the beginning of the campaign. So I started with the interviews of the families, and together we build the script, what the loved one has to say, what's really happened. And also we get some credibilities from all what's happened in the legal perspective as well. So we cannot say anything we want. We still want to be very strict with the facts. And also we did all these processes with domestic violence experts. It was very, very important for us. So all the script and all the messages in the website, everywhere, we did it together with the professionals and the families as well. And also I can say that those families were a key part of the campaign, and their motivation and their involvement, that's what made the campaign to be so strong and so effective.
Now, you mentioned that you're really focusing more on this campaign. Does that mean that you're looking to continue to bring more voices into the spotlight?
So after the campaign, what I realized that I really want to combine doing a social activity and address social issues, and also to involve technologies, and innovative technologies. So after the campaign, the company DAD, it was one of my partner, reached out to me and really want me to join forces to be part of the company. And for me, it was an amazing opportunity. And I established the impact department, part of DAD. And there we use DAD technology to create more projects in different domains, that each of them address social issues. So one of them is going to be animation of a chatbot in all the UN languages, and also Ukrainian and Swahilian. And we're going to do it together with Microsoft and the UN Women.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to launch it as part of the 16 days of the activism of the UN during December. And we have another campaign how to about the Holocaust remembrance as well. And now there is another campaign that I'm working on. This time, not as part of DAD, however, DAD probably will be part of it, in the human trafficking domain. And
Oh
now
my
we're
gosh.
working to find the best part. Yes, I know it's very hardcore topic, but very, very important. And also we want to see how wide is this phenomenon, and also not only the phenomenon and it's not only the prevalence of this phenomenon, but also the forms of this phenomenon. So, and this we're going to launch in the US, hopefully during 2023.
I can see how this would be very impactful. If we start with the 5 women and the 5 families that you initiated this project with, I could imagine that this would have been 5 women, who you said they were murdered by their intimate partners. It was probably, a blip in the news cycle, and then it was set aside. And what you've done is you've not only highlighted that, but you've brought that story to life, coming from the background of the families and the fact-based perspective, but you've digitized it in a way that it's permanent, not just one news cycle and then set aside. And I would say that the more you continue to do this, it goes back to what we said earlier about the direct and indirect impact. I absolutely can see how highlighting these stories could inspire others to come forward before it gets too late, before it gets to that point where you're now talking about them in past tense, versus maybe they could have been inspired by one of these stories and come up and tried to get someone to help them.
I think, you just talked about the impact that we created in this campaign. So I want to elaborate more about this. So in this campaign, we increase dramatically the awareness to domestic violence in Israel. It was one of the most successful campaign ever in general, but in this topic specifically. In 3 days, we have around 10 million views. In Israel, it's a lot. And the engagement rate was very, very high, like 5 times higher. And more important than that, it was across all genders. And we saw that men spend the same amount of time as women of the contents of the campaign. And this is pretty rare, usually in campaigns that are talking about domestic violence. And the last thing is that we saved lives already and counting. Because while the campaign was running, we had 1,000 clicks on the hotline numbers. And also fantastic. We got direct inquiries for women. And you're talking about the continuous of the campaign, but it was the women that reached out to us directly to us. It wasn't the call to action of the campaign at all, but still, since we have our social media platforms, so they reach us through Instagram, through Facebook, Meta, and they share and thank us. And now after they saw the campaign, they understand that they are in dangerous relationships and so on. They didn't ask for help at all. So, and also, what also very unique, those women, that most of them was very young women, and some of them even teenagers. And it's really got me thinking that today all the domestic violence campaign, they are not talking to the young generation at all. And if I have a hotline number, so they don't feel comfortable to reach out to those hotlines. They're using social media, they're using Instagram, they're using Meta, TikTok, even chatbot. it's better for them to ask for help or just started, and also they don't ask for help. They just started to chat with us
Mm-hmm.
and to thank us. And also like all the connection with them was different than what we are familiar with today.
No, I think that's a really valid observation that nowadays, when we think about the messaging of what we're communicating, how we're communicating it through the digital, various social media platforms that you just mentioned, you have to talk to the people where they are, and they're not on email. you know, they're on their phones and they're on these social media platforms, and I think that's a really great observation that we definitely can take away from this conversation.
And
Um,
also talk their language because it's a
okay,
different language, how
yes.
they communicate.
So then these when we look at the campaign, you mentioned AI technologies. I just want to highlight, when we talk about AI technologies, there are words like deep learning, machine learning, neural networks, computer vision, conversational AI. What I'm sure that you used a combination of AI technologies. Can you highlight some of those for us?
I will try.
Okay. You don't have to get really technical.
So in our company, we have two departments. One is the developers and the other the AI experts.
Mhm.
And we're using machine learning to do it. And what's so unique in our technology that how we are keep the lip sync to be fit to the right language or the voice as well. This is our main focus. And also the eye movement and the head movement, but mostly the lip sync. I think it's very, very unique in our approach.
Okay, so I immediately went to there used to be a TV show or a channel here in the US, and I forgot the name of it, but it was all of these old old Japanese movies, and they would dub it, and you'd have the English version written in closed caption, but when you looked at the actors, they were still speaking in their local language. So that's what you're referencing, is that if I'm speaking in a different language and I've got the caption in English, the lip movement is completely disconnected from the words in my language.
Yes, so theoretically this could be a good fit. However, our technology we don't have like we don't working on existing video, for
Hmm.
example. We are generating the video or we are animating a still image to see a real actress in movies. So we don't have a stitch
Hmm.
video on one of each other. So it's a different use case. I totally agree.
Yeah.
What you said, it's a bit weird. There are other technology that addresses the issue, and it's more complicated and much longer cycle than what we are doing. So we can generate a still image with the voice in a few seconds. And to do it in a movie, it's a different use case, but
Yes.
definitely needed, and we should be there so far.
Well, I was trying to think of how I could relate to the difference between someone who's watching a video. Like when I watch the video, it seems so seamless. Um, you look at it and you get so involved in the message and the story that the second or third time I'm watching it, now I'm putting my technology hat on, and now I see it very differently. I'm like, oh my gosh, her voice is in English, but if this was translated in French, the structure of what you were talking about, the movement of the lips makes it look like she's speaking English, which I know that wasn't the original language. Um, the movements that you mentioned, just the what I call micro expressions,
Mhm.
that I noticed was, wow, they didn't have to do that, but they added that in there to really emphasize the emotion that's coming through on the story. I could see this is just fantastic. I'm so glad that we connected today.
Sure, thank you for having me.
Yeah. As we start to wrap up, um, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think that I'm open. I think all the impact industry or impact domain, a campaign and project are, it's like a new area I'm looking at. And now after I did a while in this area and I saw how complicated and challenging it is and how it's combined together many different sectors, and also to understand who gonna sponsor it, or because usually the end user are not most of the time not willing to pay for this kind of technologies and services. So, but still, this project is super important and influence a lot of people's lives and can improve life. And while we're using technology, we can make it scalability and in a very wide range. Mm-hmm. So now that me, Shiran, as a social tech entrepreneur, I'm open to do more campaign, more project, and even just to have a conversation with the people who want to be part of this amazing industry of impact, and pick my brain. I would love to pick your brain and just have conversation how we can create this life of many other people better using technology. So I think we can learn from each other. I will be willing to spread the word and be very missionary with my vision, how we can use technology to create social impact. Love to hear you and hopefully assist with my experience to anyone.
I think, I mean, the goal of this podcast is to understand how AI and data is impacting each of us on a day-to-day basis. And I think this story really highlights that AI and technology is not just about being able to create, a data organization or being able to create the infrastructure that can support, 400,000, data sets, but it can also be used for good. It can also be used for, what you've talked about, a social tech, entrepreneur that's taking the technology out there and looking at different ways that we can use it to not just solve business challenges that we couldn't 5 years ago, but to be able to use it in these innovative ways that you've expressed here that we couldn't have even thought about 5 years ago.
Definitely, we can be much more creative and like there is no border. We can do many things using this technology, and it's not only that we can use it for good, we have to use it for good and to be proactive to do it.
Well, Shiran, tada, which I learned recently is Hebrew for thank you. Thank you for being a guest on our show today. I look forward to reaching out to you in a year from now because I think there's so much more that you're going to be able to share with us, and all this progress that you're going to take from what we've, the foundation, and how you're going to be able to exponentially increase the social good for AI.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.